So we ended off with a little bit of a story early on, or should I say last year already. We started talking about where Stealth came from, sort of how it started and how we got to sort of where we are today. So today I'll just expand a little bit on that story and share a little bit more about Stealth, you know, what we've done over the years, how we develop things, why we keep developing all the time, and maybe a little bit what's coming up in the future. So touching on a little bit more from the last series, all I basically touched on was saying, you know, we took a kayak, developed a kayak and whatever, but the actual development of the kayak was always interesting. You know, we started off with this kayak that could surf waves, then it progressed to the evolution range. The evolution range progressed to the Pro Fisher range, and obviously Pro Fisher range is still where we are today, but it constantly has upgrades and changes. So it never stops evolving. But I think the beauty of it was the understanding of paddling and the understanding of fishing from my side and from the guys that I work with and the guys that fish a lot, that things are always changing. The style of fishing changes. You know, we go back to the first time we ever fished on a super light kayak. I mean, we had a dead bait, and even pulling a Helco was like, wow, they're pulling Helcos today, you know, or pulling a Rapala. So it was just a dead bait, throw a dead bait, sit and wait for a bite. Then obviously the invent of drop shot fishing came when Brad Arthur and I went to Mozambique, and we sort of, you know, did the first bit of drop shotting off a kayak in a competition and dominated that competition, where we were sort of more than 5 times the points of any other competitors just purely from drop shot fishing. And then the drop shot fishing evolved a little bit more, and we started jigging more, and we started chasing amberjacks in deep water, and then from there we've come back. But only in the last sort of, I would say in South Africa predominantly, in the last 3 years, maybe even 2.5 years, the guys have progressed a lot more to the live bait fishermen, and that's obviously why all our kayaks now have a live bait mod to them. But before that, it was unheard of for people to use live bait, unless maybe you caught a live bonito and you pinned a live bonito. But you know, catching things like mackerel and mozzies and even, you know, whatever else the guys are fishing with as live bait was not common, put it that way. There were a few people doing it, but it wasn't very common. And of course we had the guys now, you know, you throwing the good old socks poppers and things at the tuna, you know, stick baits, poppers, chasing the tuna, chasing them around, whereas in the past, if a tuna came past and ate your bait, it wasn't, you know, coincidental, it wasn't targeted. So fishing has evolved a lot, and I honestly do see fishing to continuously evolve. And the trick is always to keep on top of what's evolving and where the changes are coming from. So currently we are working on a few things, as we always are, which I've been fiddling around with, and some of them things take way longer than I like them to, but that's just the nature of the beast, I suppose. And I do see the fishing itself on a kayak continuously to step up in a few different ways. So that's, I suppose, one of the reasons why the kayaks have evolved so much over the years. You know, certain markets obviously are prone to different styles of kayak fishing or different styles of fishing, and we have to adapt to each market, or we try to adapt to each market. You know, some places have these monster live bait they pull, and they may be too big for what we used to. But I mean, everything can be to some degree, you know, modified or changed over time to suit a specific market. Yeah, so, you know, predominantly, let's say 5 years ago, a lot of my business was obviously, I'd say 80% of my business and work was local. Currently, I'd say it's the other way around. I'd say 80% of our business is export and 20% is local market. The number of kayaks being purchased in the local market has declined a little bit over the last few years, not for any other reason other than the market maybe has had a lot more kayaks in the market already, whereas before obviously it was a new phase, but it stays fairly constant. If I look at the numbers and the figures, we're still selling much the same as we were locally, but the production wise and the international market and demand internationally has obviously stepped up a lot, and that's where we obviously try and to keep up and trying to keep ahead of the game and to service both our markets as best as we can. So the local market always has a certain time that we find it is a rush, you know, when it's the first fish jumps out for the season, and as it goes on, and then when the weather gets bad or the weather gets, you know, windy, the local market does slow down. But international market, I suppose every country is different in a different phase or different season, so it sort of rolls in waves, and and comes either, like any business I suppose, it either comes all at once, or you're wondering what to do next, and then everybody decides in one go they need something. So yeah, we've expanded over the last few years, well, 5 or 6 years. We've expanded into countries like New Zealand. We've been very active in Australia for a long time through the kayak specialist guys. We're growing our footprint in the USA, in the States. Obviously, we've got a very small footprint in Hawaii. We're working on growing Europe now. One of the guys who used to fish locally is now taking on some marketing and selling in the UK. We have guys in Italy, we have guys in France, we have guys in Spain, we have guys in Mauritius, we have guys in, off the top of my head, even guys at the moment chatting to guys in Japan and places like that. So the market is evolving and is changing, but you can imagine the way a guy in Japan fishes to the way a guy in Australia fishes is very different. So it's understanding the changes you need to do and understanding to adapt to the market is quite challenging, but it's fun. So I mean, that's really where we've evolved and how we've grown over time. Actively, I don't get to fish nearly as much as I used to. I try and get away on tours and trips. I had a few scheduled for this year, but like we know, our good friend COVID, unfortunately, not a single trip has been had, and I haven't been able to fish. So hopefully we'll get some time in the summer and start catching some fish again. But for now, it's head down, focusing on what we're doing and constantly trying to improve. You know, the last 2 weeks, I've done some quite hard research and fiddling around and throwing stuff away and trying again. And some of the things I've made, I think I've made them like 7 times before I find a way that I think it needs to be done, which is in various ways either suited to the market or the best and easiest way to manufacture. So although I've been in the game for 20 years, nothing changes. You're learning all the time, you're adapting, you're changing, you're modifying, you're trying to come up with different ways, different solutions, and it's never a complete product or finished item, if you know what I'm saying. So you look at our Fusion kayak now. So we have the Fusion 480. It was launched in July. Let's look at our sales, and from July till now, we've various markets, whether it be locally, whether it be internationally. We've sold a large number of Fusion kayaks, actually more than I expected, which is great. The reception has been good. The product itself is always work in progress. So we've recently just had our kick-up rudder land. So we're developing a slight modification for the back of the rudder and a kit that'll allow you to swap the understern rudder and to a kick-up rudder, so you can have a different style rudder if you want. So there's always work in progress. Improving hatches, improving the pieces that attach to the kayak. I always seem to find ideas or different ideas to do it. So we're always evolving, always changing, or we're trying to change, or we're trying to improve as much as we can. So we're always trying to improve or change as much as we can. And sometimes you do something a certain way and you find out it's too difficult to assemble it, or it takes too long. Let's try a different way. Can it be done that way? So yeah, like I say, it evolves. It changes all the time. We're working on, as I said before, I'm working on a few new things at the moment, some things that I've been bouncing around in my head for ages and trying to come up with what I see as maybe the best solution for the way we manufacture kayaks, or long term. When we design something or make something, I can't think of it as now. I got to think of what will that be like in 6 months' time, or in a year's time, or 18 months. Will there be problems if I do it this way or if I do it that way? So evolving and changing is always happening. On the fishing side, well, I don't know. It's difficult to say whether I can see how much more we can advance from where we are. We get to a stage where you've got, in our range, you've got a ski that's fast, you've got a ski that's more stable, you've got a ski that's shorter and manipulator in the surf. And people go, well, how much can you change, or how much can you improve, or whatever. And I don't think it's always about how much can we change or how much can we improve, but it's how we can get better, even at the products we're already making. And that's something we take a lot of pride in. And we're always trying to improve, make improvements, we're always trying to do it a little bit better, we're always trying to find a way to just better ourselves at what we do. Yeah, and it's enjoyable. It's hard, I won't lie. Like any business, you know, it's maybe from the outside it's like all roses, you know. You see the guy selling something and you go, oh, that's easy, let me try. But it's a lot of hard work over a lot of time.